use sex to sell everything from toothpaste to cars, yet you can't talk about it.
When did you first learn about sex? So, when did you first learn about sex?
Sex!
In many ways, it means different things to different people. For educators and adults to influence youth on just what sex should mean to them is a touchy subject. Mainly, it is because most adults can't necessarily define exactly what role sex plays in their own lives. There seems to always be a veil over issues in regards to sex when it comes to today's youth. Most adults do not know how to address the controversial topic with adolescents. The question is when, how, and if they should talk to their children about sex. School districts across the globe have to bridge the gap between families, cultures, and society to best deliver the subject within the standards and contexts most approved by the community. Due to various complications with the delivery of sex education, adolescents end up paying the price in a range of compartments in their lives. Sexual education should promote a positive foundation of knowledge for adolescents so that they can choose to have safe and emotionally affirmative sex and relationships. Those who possess a healthy sexual identity and a healthy sexual development demonstrate knowledge of how to practice safe sex, understand the signs of an abusive relationship, and feel positive about their sexual orientation and sexual behavior. In our current society, sex is everywhere. It's highly concentrated in westernized culture. It is rampant among today's music, advertising, art, and clothing style. Sex seems to be ingrained in us at such an early age, even before we are aware of it. We have taken on the task of trying to find out the effects that sexual education has on the future of today's youth across the globe and see how it has changed in deliverance to students over time.
Ireland has historically had a strict commitment to Roman Catholicism that involved the church promoting censorship, rigid gender roles, and bans on sexual relationships outside of marriage, abortion, and the use of contraceptives. However, due to increased urbanization in the 1960s, the hold of the church was reduced. With this reduction, cities like Dublin became centers for an educated population where more liberal attitudes are prevalent. Today, extramarital birth is on the rise, with more than 30% to teenagers. These teenagers get their information about sex from their peers, foreign media, books, and the internet. Up to 1/3 of 16-year-old school-going adolescents may be sexually active. As a result, relationships and sexual education was introduced to Irish schools in 1995. However, the program shows only modest progress with implementation and delivery of this program in schools nationwide.
First I heard it was from my parents. So before I went to big school, my mother sat me down and let the birds and the bees talk. First year of secondary school, I think it was my, so what you would call...
How old were you?
First year junior high, 12. It was in a workbook, and then we just plowed through it. It was just like, okay, we need to get through this, guys, we need to get through this, come on, we need to get through this. Giggle, 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 giggle. When we had basic science, we did anatomy of the body. But it was just anatomy as part of the science course. It wasn't anatomy in reference to sexual education. It was very vague, both from my parents, both from formal education. And we had a thing called SPHE, which is Social, Political and Health Education. That kind of covered sex education, which was taught by a woman teacher to a mixed class. Born and baptised. It wasn't like a private thing, it was what was called a comprehensive, which was a public school. But when religious education came around, Protestant children were segregated into, they had Protestant religion class.
I had the same kind of upbringing as you, and I lived in the city, but I lived in a kind of Catholic school environment, and it was the exact same. I went to a Catholic school, so it was against their kind of principles. So. Parent, yes, definitely. I think the education system should be a kind of support system.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It should be
But I think it should be from home, first of all.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it should always come from home, but for those people who do not have that conversation, there should be a second kind of catch, that kind of way. So
if you're a teacher, if you're a science teacher,
just hammer home the point,
Absolutely. If you're a parent, then you should educate your children from the start.
In the United Kingdom, the age of first coitus has steadily declined since the 1960s, with the average for both genders being at 16. However, 25% have intercourse before 16, most without contraception. There is major controversy about the distribution of contraceptives to young women 16 to 17 years old, with only 40% of them using contraceptives. Some politicians argue that it encourages experimentation. For the same reason, school sex education is controversial. The United Kingdom has the highest teen pregnancy and abortion rate in West Europe. In 2003, over 25,000 minors underwent abortions. In response to the high rate of teen births, the government has established a special agency, the Teen Pregnancy Unit, to address issues relating both to unplanned pregnancy as well as support for young parents.
I was in school in the 50s in Scotland, and that was Presbyterian time. Nobody ever talked about sex. Not your mum, not your dad, not your school, not your minister. I was the science geek, so I tended to be the one that went to the books and found out. And there were lots of conversations in boys' bathrooms. Sex education in Scotland is just an oxymoron. It doesn't happen. Now, I know it's changed, but when I was, I'm amazed there's another generation of Scots, because there was very, very little in terms of sex education. There was no provision for birth control. I think the idea was that most people were heavily committed to academic life, and you just work. In Scotland, even at the university level, most people, because it's a small country, stayed at home. I stayed at home and commuted to Glasgow, and since most of the folk in Scotland live in most of the big cities, most of the university population were in fact commuters. So it was a little bit hard to get up to any mischief.
In order to alleviate some of the social, environmental, and economic problems China was facing as a result of huge population growth, China implemented in 1979 a one-child policy, resulting in birth control education to students. However, a comprehensive sexual education program is on the back burner, with students receiving information from other sources. As a result of increased westernization, China is experiencing higher divorce rates, with most divorces being initiated by women. And there's a trend toward higher engagement in premarital sex, with 70% of Beijing residents reporting in a 2005 survey that they had sexual relations before marriage, compared to around 15% in the 1980s. However, the topic is still very much a social taboo, and adolescents known for engaging in sexual relations are socially condemned by the collectivist culture, making it difficult to obtain valid results of teen sexuality and the effectiveness of sexual education.
Well, in China, we almost don't to talk with like this, like sex education. Just a very, very little from, my school, actually in China.
Ghana, one of the most developed countries in sub-Saharan Africa, has a patriarchal power system that favors men. Rapid social change since the 1960s has undermined traditional initiation and pubertal rites that taught adolescents about sex life. Today, more than 60% of women have been pregnant by age 20. Consensus amongst experts that sexually transmitted infections are quite common in Ghana, with people under the age of 20 being at greatest risk. With the increase in HIV and AIDS, community and health institutions have intensified condom campaigns. Campaigns are targeted to children through the Ghana Reproductive Health Service Policy. However, much of the knowledge youth have comes from friends and parents.
Sex education is taught here pretty much from the lower grades. We start first by teaching the children their body, the parts of the body, and the importance of keeping the body clean. And with that personal hygiene lesson or activity, they get to know different parts of their bodies.
Okay.
Now, as they progress along the academic ladder, the first grade, the second grade, they learn more about the parts of the body, the sexual parts, the functions, because it has to do with toileting and all of that.
Yes.
And these are ways we're able to teach them about it. Now, when you get to the upper primary and the middle grades, where there is a need to also caution them about protection and so on and so forth, that is also added to the curriculum. The necessary cautions given, yes.
Okay.
More of the content is delivered when the pupils are a little bit older and can better understand.
Argentina has historically discouraged the use of contraceptives, with the first female president, Isabel Perón, passing legislation in the 1970s making it extremely difficult to access. Her legislation was created to combat the historically low birth rate. This legislation was not effective because birth rates continued to plummet. The newly democratized government of the late 1980s promoted laws that would increase the accessibility of contraceptives and promote its use. The Catholic Church, however, still maintains its influence on issues such as abortion, where it's illegal unless under extreme circumstances. As of now, there is a national level program for sex education, despite the government-held belief that it is responsibility of the parents. According to the research, in more than 50% of the cases, family members have been the most important sex educators. Currently, men's average age of sexual debut is 16 and women's is 18.
There was a subject at school, we were around 15 years old, and it was called Salud y Adolescencia, that means teenagers and health. So it was basically about that. And it was a small teacher that didn't show a lot of respect. I remember now that there was once, there were some guests that came to school, and it was a couple that talked about that. I think they did it in every school. It was something from the government, or maybe the school code. I don't remember very much. But there were two people that came and answered any question we wanted. They show you the parts. They didn't talk about much specifically about stuff. But it was more about biology and history of the diseases and consequences. We postcards about every week there was a subject, maybe diseases, the body. No, they don't preach, but it depends the circle you're around. Because where I move, it's not things of you do at 15. Yeah, it's not the most normal thing to do. But I once, when I was younger, I went to a rural school. I lived in a farm. Okay. And there, all my classmates were mothers at 16. No, my parents never talked about that specifically, but it's not like a forbidden thing. It's not a taboo, but it's now we are not eating and talking about. It depends on how they give it to you. Not a lecture or something like that. You don't listen, but it's all to connect to for the family, healthy friends. You like to be outside. You like to study. You like to do a lot of different stuff. You're a healthy person, healthy mind, and you know how to defend yourself. Okay. Say no, yes. There's no right time or right answer. I think it's not about talking or not. It's just to building confidence. You just have to feel good with yourself and know you are worth it. And then you should know it's yourself, it's your body, it's your intimacy. You should be comfortable. If you're not comfortable, it's horrible.
Sex education throughout Brazil has been non-existent and primal. According to research, many Brazilians have little knowledge about the biological aspects of sex, the basics. This lack of education has contributed to high rates of STDs, teenage pregnancy rates, low contraceptive use, and unsafe methods of obtaining unlawful abortions. However, due to westernization, there is an increasing awareness of this problem, and current initiatives are underway to address this problem.
The south of Brazil has a more European influence, and the cities are also much bigger, so you have a more urban way of doing things. So if in the south we are more conservative, and usually families, for example, they have 1 to 2 children per couple, and women usually have the first baby when they are 25. In the north we have more indigenous people, and the colonization was also in a different way. In the north and northeast side of Brazil, families are much bigger. I know families with 14 children per couple. They are 25. In the north and northeast side of Brazil, families are much bigger. I know families with 14 children per couple.
Wow!
And also, girls, they may have babies much earlier. Among the mixed blood and white men people in Brazil, they might be 17 to 18. But indigenous traditions may be 12 to 13 years old. Because for indigenous women, as they have the first period, they are already a woman. They may be a mother. And it doesn't take more than 2 years for them.
So they go by when their bodies are physically ready as opposed to when they...
Exactly.
Okay.
Because once they live in their own traditional means, integrated with the forest, as a matter of fact, 13 years old girls are more than prepared to be a mom. Despite they still have their childhood left over, they already are socially prepared to be a woman. Yeah, so it's a very important matter to understand, to avoid the misunderstanding that they are too young for that. They might be, but they are over prepared if you compare to a 13-year-old girls in the São Paulo, for example. In terms of the formal education and the way the country discusses this, government allows the people to develop their traditions, but always reinforce means to protect themselves. So distribution of condoms, sexual education with campaigns in schools, health centers, hospitals, militaries, expeditions, social assistance, always happens. TV also shows lots of advertisement on how to have safe sex and how to prevent from diseases and so on. So the level of conversation for that in Brazil is quite good. Everybody's exposed. So sexuality with children and minors are very much fighted in hotels, in clubs, in nightclubs, and all kinds of entertainment places. So everybody, no one can say they were not aware of the reality and the legality of things. So it's something very important to keep democracy on.
Throughout our voyage, we have been able to see how others in different parts of the world learn about sex. In a world that is increasingly becoming globalized, we have found that liberal attitudes of sex have become the most prevalent across cultures and boundaries.